does feel a little bit like we are in that sort of war on terror moment again, as, of course, President Trump, after saying 2 weeks, said, I said within 2 weeks.
Right.
Within 24 hours, drops the midnight hammer, as they're calling it. And look, I'd say I'm incredibly impressed with this. Watching the rollout of it, look, it's not that it doesn't make me nervous, not that I don't have feelings and thoughts about whether we are at war or not with Iran. Obviously, the main line here is saying we are not at war with Iran. We just went in and we took out 3 of these top enrichment sites. And that's good. Again, very Top Gun Maverick that this happened here. However, I was very encouraged once I heard not only the statement from President Trump, which we'll play a little bit later, but the press briefing the following day when they kind of outlined exactly what went on in this operation. Incredibly impressive from this team. I really think when you have somebody like Pete Hegseth, when you have Marco Rubio, and you even have J.D. Vance, but you have those two, I think those two together are people who have been through it, who understand it, and clearly can execute a mission that, again, there were no leaks. No one knew it was happening. It happened before we knew it was over. Even so much so that the news wasn't even covering that there was this sort of major attack in Iran.
Well, and after that statement of within 2 weeks that we got at the end of last week, the mainstream and liberal media decided to have a field day with that. They were writing story after story and having monologue after monologue about how when President Trump says 2 weeks, that means he's trying to get out of something.
You forget about it.
In fact, The Atlantic published a piece around 9 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, the very day that then a few hours later we discovered and were told that these strikes had happened, by David Frum, that says, "What Iran knows about Trump. The mullahs of Iran joined the bet that Trump always chickens out." And we saw that that wasn't the case.
President, acting under Article 2 authority as the commander-in-chief, authorized a military strike that had been well thought out for over a decade and well executed. And a huge thank you to our men and women in the military that were involved in this. What a tremendous victory for the United States military. But also, this is a world-changing moment. And I think the thing to reflect on right now is that this moment in history, the world will change. And it will change because it has the real potential now, for the first time certainly in your lifetime, and I think mine as well, that we could see a total reshaping of the Middle East. We saw the beginning of that with the Abraham Accords. We've seen the continued security cooperation between Middle East countries, including Israel. The Arab world, for the most part, wanted to see an end of the Iranian regime. That nuclear threat was not something that anyone in the region would tolerate, but it took the Israelis initially and the United States ultimately to conclude a military exercise that literally makes the world safer for my grandchildren.
People hopefully tuned in and saw President Trump's statement. I think we have some of those sound from that as well, because I actually had my kids watch it because they were all hearing about the news started to rumble around. And I go, hey, this could be very much a historical moment. You probably need to be in the room. You probably need to hear what's going on. I'll explain to you the situation. And then I think President Trump came in definitively, strongly, made the statement, and it actually brought a little bit more comfort to my family to hear what he was saying. Again, not saying we're going into war, saying we were going in to stop war, essentially.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
Spectacular military success. Now, we are still awaiting sort of the full damage. We've seen some of the overhead images. You can definitely see that tunnels were taken out. A lot of things were taken out. Some of the buildings may still be standing. But again, at least we know they went in and took care of things. And of course, Iran has responded. They've started to make some moves. That we've obviously seen some issues in Israel already, kind of uptick once again in Israel, and that's unfortunate, but we kind of knew that was probably going to come.
And once again, those 3 nuclear sites, Fordo was the most fortified. That was the one that was
the one we knew the name of.
200 or 300 feet down in the mountain, built in a very specific way to try and shield it from someone trying to take it out. That one will be the one that takes the longest to assess what damage it did to the actual vault that is underground where they carry out these nuclear enrichment capabilities.
Was like, yeah, we know that, because why would they be building this all underground?
Right, exactly.
If you didn't think it was being used for nefarious reasons, why do you think they decided, we need to build this hundreds of feet down?
Well, and once again, Iran,
300 feet.
Has an operating nuclear power plant in that provides a large amount of electricity to their people. You know how much of their enriched uranium from this program they spent billions of dollars on, and all these secret bases and all these sites, how much of that enriched uranium is used for that nuclear power plant?
How much, Will?
Zero. Not a single bit. It all comes from Russia with an agreement. And then Russia takes the depleted cores back to Russia. So they're not even trying to do it for civil purposes, creating a better energy grid for their people. No, they are doing it for one reason only, to get to 90%, to put on a warhead, to get to the United States or Israel or anyone else they feel like they need to blow up. And they are crazy enough to do it.
President Trump has decided that this was a threat to U.S. national security. He did a one-and-done, incredible takeout of the 3 nuclear facilities. We've set it back or destroyed it. We're waiting for more evidence. But the individuals who are trying to say, this immediately means we're going to go to war, there's a forever war, and all of those arguments, I understand their concern. But what they're missing is that Donald Trump rose to power without buying into the usual Republican Party. I think we have to admit that Republican Party idea that we can somehow export democracy, and yet President Trump in the primary in 2015 and 16 and in the general election made it clear that he doesn't view our role in the world that way, that he wants to put America first. But putting America first sometimes means that you do limited, targeted, precision strikes to protect America, and that's what he did.
I think what we saw with the bombing raid is how strong of a military we have. Thank God we have Donald Trump, because I don't know how many times on this broadcast, and basically my entire career has been lobbying in Washington, D.C., different nations, to stop a nuclear Iran so that we didn't have to get to this point, but that we knew that at some point there would be a president of the United States that had to make this call. And it was President Trump. Our military executed a flawless mission. But let's not forget, Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terror. So while I know our military bases can be protected, we all need to be just as cautious as well, go about our lives. I don't want to sound warning signs, but there is a travel warning for all Americans all over the world. So right now, it's not that, again, most people have no interest in harming you, but we know Iran is more capable about carrying out smaller attacks than they are obviously responding to large-scale military operations.